came as soon as I heard. Are you hurt? I was here. I was visiting a friend on floor 9 when I got the call that you were here. Your professor and parents are heading out, but they're going to take a little bit of time. Half the city's backed up after yesterday's attack. But that's the crazy part. We still have no idea. At 8:45 p.m. yesterday, there was a huge explosion near downtown. I was on scene 36 minutes after it happened. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Like God took an ice cream scoop out of the world. Perfectly round crater, a little over a quarter-mile across. High alpha radiation, incredibly high heat. It took 3 hours of water to cool down the site enough to begin searching for survivors. Luckily, it was later in the day and away from housing. The problem is, though, with almost no debris, we have no idea how many casualties there were. All we could do is search the nearby buildings and rescue the people in the resulting fires caused by the heat. Not to mention it cuts straight through the utilities for 500,000 residents. Water, sewage, power, natural gas. Heck, it even took out part of the subway line. It cut the East Bend water treatment plant in half. Millions of gallons of wastewater evaporated in less than 20 milliseconds. I was there when the chief engineer for the Department of Water and Power saw the crater. In his own words, by all laws of physics, what we were looking at was impossible. The only thing that could possibly create that much heat is a nuclear weapon, but the damage would have been much, much worse. Honestly, we're not even sure if it was an attack. Nobody has claimed the destruction, so it isn't a terrorist attack. I guess there was a bank in the blast radius, but if you plan on robbing the place, you wouldn't vaporize the whole building. I guess one thing of note is Stellar Technologies. Yeah, the support company. They make costumes and gadgets for heroes. By law, they have to keep all of their dangerous tools in a level 5 quirk-proof vault, to prevent them from getting in the wrong hands. The vault was sliced clean in half. Supposedly, a level 5 vault can stop a high-tier hero or very strong villain for about 15 minutes from getting inside. Probably not All Might, but definitely Endeavor. But nothing was stolen. All the items in the vault that were not incinerated were accounted for. One sign of concern was the whole thing might have been an accident, and whoever did it has gone into hiding. All we know for sure is it's made one hell of a mess. It took a chunk out of the Atarashi Plaza building. All the lower floors were shopping and unused, thank God, but the upper floors were all apartments. With a huge chunk out of the bottom of the building, it was definitely no longer safe for the residents. The problem is, the side that got vaporized is where all the fire escapes were. And without power, the elevators no longer worked. So we had to evacuate through the elevator shaft and off the balconies. But whoa. Listen to me going on. What about you? I heard you were nearby when the blast went off. Jesus, on Smith Street? Were you at the police station by the mall? That's, 10, 11 blocks away from the blast radius? Did you see anything? Oh my God. The damage outside the radius was significant. I guess blown out windows are the lucky break, considering the alternative. What were you doing at the police station, if you don't mind me asking? Are you okay? You don't have to tell me if you don't want to. Yeah, I understand. You've been through a trauma. I can't imagine what you're going through at the moment. Do you want me to leave you alone? Oh, sure. I'm happy to keep you company until your parents get here. It's funny. The hero downstairs, Impervion, I've known him since UA, one of my closest friends, even after all these years. As the name would suggest, he is impervious. He doesn't breathe. He's completely fireproof, completely cold-proof. If you put a hole through him, it heals instantly. His bones are so flexible, they're literally incapable of breaking. He's walked into burning buildings without even feeling the heat. He swam to the bottom of the ocean with just a flashlight and swim trunks. I have seen him hit the ground at terminal velocity and walk away from the crater unharmed. So, you know what landed the immortal Impervion in the hospital? His appendix burst. Countless missions with staggering odds against, and he gets done in by his own body. Oh man, we had a good laugh about that one. Reminds me, way back at UA, we were doing the provisional hero licensing exam. I still have nightmares about that, by the way. Well, my class was sticking together pretty well when out of the blue one of my classmates got eliminated. It was instant. All 3 targets on him were struck in the blink of an eye. Had he been closer to me, I may have been able to stop them, but I was still not under full control of my quirk. Earlier in the day, I had eliminated a student who thought he could overpower me with pure strength. It's not going to happen. You can't beat the guy who controls kinetic energy with kinetic energy. But anyway, shortly after that, I met up with Impervion, who too had gotten outwon by just kind of sneaking up on him and tagging him before he could realize. Oh yeah, Impervion makes no noise. It's like his ultimate ability. When he's barefoot, he makes 0 noise. He gives up no heat either. It's kind of freaky. Anyway, we were pinned down by some student who could make portals in thin air. No idea how large he could make them, but he literally made a ball-sized portal on my classmates' targets and tapped the balls to them. It was scary fast as well, but he must have needed line of sight. So he and one of his classmates were up in a parking garage looking down on us, so we dove behind an old burnt-out school bus and took cover. The portal guy's friend, who could control glass, had trapped us on the opposite side of the school bus and with these big walls of flying broken glass, and was slowly closing in the walls on us. We were totally boxed in, and I was sure we were finished. But then they made the biggest mistake a hero or villain can make. They started monologuing, droning on and on about how great their school was and who their dad was, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it gave us just enough time to make a plan and carry it out. Now, I'm fully aware it wasn't a good plan, and had our UA profs seen us do it, they would have definitely whooped our asses, but it did work. So, right in the middle of the portal guy's speech, I blasted Impervion through the remains of the school bus right at the students. He splat like one of those sticky hands against the concrete wall behind them. It was horrible. The sound alone was traumatic. I can't imagine how bad it must have looked. Had it been any other person, instant death. The students slowly got close, no doubt traumatized. After all, as far as they knew, they just witnessed a student overexert his quirk and wind up dying right in front of them. With their attention on the mangled body, I quietly launched myself onto the overpass and quickly tagged out one of the unsuspecting students. And then as the attention was on me, Impervion leapt up and tagged out the last. When the shock subsided and they figured out what we had done, they were unbelievably pissed. And understandably, that was, by all accounts, a cowardly move. However, we did pass our provisional hero classification, and they had to wait till next year. That was a rough one. Out of the 30-ish students from my class who went into the licensing exam, only 6 got their provisional licenses. Oh, that's not to discourage you. I know you have that coming up pretty soon. You'll be fine. Your quirk is scary powerful, but more importantly, you have a good head on your shoulders. Being powerful is only half the battle. You need to be clever. I have known students with completely mundane quirks pass by simply outsmarting the competition. Ego is even more dangerous than your opponents. If you believe you're unbeatable, that's when you're at your weakest. Train hard, use your brain, trust in your friends, and you'll nail it first try. I have no doubt. Impervion? Oh, yeah, he'll be fine. The surgery went well. They'll keep him a couple days just to be sure, but I'm certain he'll be back to doing whatever it is he does. You know, right out of UA, he got hired by the government for some top secret stuff. He's been doing this for, at least 17 years now. I know better than to ask at this point, but he said it has something to do with the ocean. He seems to enjoy it, and it pays very well, so he may as well keep doing it. I had a chance to work for the government right out of UA as well. Very hush-hush stuff. Got approached by a representative from the Advanced Hero Research Bureau. Wanted to interview me for a position. I still wasn't 100% sure if I wanted to stay with Master Effects Agency, so I said sure. It was the weirdest thing. They sent a car for me and brought me to this huge Hero Association building downtown. I can't quite put my finger on why, but the whole time I just had a bad vibe from the whole thing. When I finally got face-to-face with someone important, they wouldn't even talk to me unless I signed a non-disclosure form. I politely declined and got a taxi home, but for a couple of days after, I felt as though I was being watched. Probably paranoid, to be honest. I started at Master Effects Agency the week after and didn't really look back. But a few months later, I was en route to a training symposium with Master Effect and a few other pro heroes. I casually mentioned that I was approached by the government and the whole weirdness that ensued. Master Effect told me I made the right choice. Not because he really wanted me to work for him or anything like that. He wasn't sentimental. But the thing is, early in his career, Master Effect worked for the government in research. After all, his temporal quirk was unlike anyone anybody had ever seen at the time. But he straight up refused to talk about it. He was unbelievably hard to read, but even I could tell this was a sore spot for him. Oh, man. Those early days were weird. It wasn't like you have it now with committees and insurance and the like. Being a hero was, let's just say, messier. At least messier than it is now. Keep in mind, this was before All Might became the symbol of peace. Villains were more brazen and much better organized. Heroes were closer to vigilantes than police officers. In those early days, heroes almost never worked with the police department. It was too risky. There were none of the protections that heroes have today. One wrong move and you can get fined or worse, arrested. Oh yeah, it happened to one of the heroes I was working with at Master Effects Agency. Oh, what was his name? Spitfire. A nice guy, stupendous hero. His body produced a natural rocket fuel that would ignite out a thruster in the middle of his back. Combined with a high-tech wingsuit and specially designed rollerblades, he could go from 0 to 100 in like a second on land. And in the air, he could pass Mach 1. Problem was the noise. Have you ever seen a rocket launch? Not exactly subtle. Sure, he could chase down anyone in record time, but your ears would be ringing if you're even remotely close to him. We were on patrol in District 22, right downtown, when a call came in. A bank was just robbed by a villain group known as the Bastard Squad. We had several dealings with them in the past. Not particularly intelligent or powerful quirk-wise, but well-armed and extremely violent. The week previous, Spitfire's partner Dynamo was put in the hospital by the group. We were 6 blocks away from where the robbery happened, and the gang was escaping to the west, perpendicular to where we were patrolling. The police were in chase, and we could have probably sat this one out, but despite Master Effect's warnings, Spitfire was blinded by rage and itching for revenge. When he took off, the backblast from his thruster blew a 10-foot hole in the apartment building behind us. The shockwaves he produced were so powerful they shattered every window along his route. It only took him a moment to catch up to the robber's car, and when he did, he sent it flying end over end down 12th Street. When the police caught up, they arrested all of the Bastard Squad and Spitfire. A week or so later, we bailed him out and heard the charges laid against him. $22 million worth of property damage, 6 civilians injured, and over 200,000 noise complaints. He was facing 5 years in jail and a $500,000 fine. Master Effect was able to negotiate on his behalf and got it down to a $250,000 fine paid by the agency and 800 hours of community service with no jail time. Was what Spitfire did right? It's hard to say. He did what he was meant to do, even if his emotions got the better of him. And while I can't condone the property damage or harming of civilians, I'm pretty sure he was arrested because he embarrassed the police force. But things are different these days. Heroes have so much more leeway in handling villains and work alongside law enforcement. In turn, the vetting process for who's allowed to become a hero is far more strict than it was in the past, and you'd know firsthand just how much schooling is required to even qualify to take the hero test. The whole system is far more tailored to heroes nowadays, and offers protections to make sure that even if a hero were to go overboard, they would not be legally liable, and instead face a judicial action from the Hero Association and not the court system. Wow. I haven't heard that name in a long time. Who told you about fulminate? That was a mess. I was in my last year at UA when the 6th Street explosion happened. Everyone was so eager to figure out who did it, they let their prejudices take hold over the facts. I remember one of my teachers who had known fulminate took a couple of days off of teaching to testify on his behalf. that his quirk couldn't have possibly caused the explosion. It was a massive scandal. UA, several high-performance hero agencies, even some of the victims' families came out to support Fulminate. What it came down to was the mayor put pressure on the police force, who put pressure on the Hero Association, and with the threat of funding cuts, they threw him under the bus. What's worse was the reaction after his conviction. Public trust of the Hero Association and police force took a major hit. Now, I'm not sure if this is true or not, but from what I've heard, this whole ordeal was attracting the attention of the federal hero adjudication and the prime minister. The mayor at the time was up for re-election and used his connections in the courts to try to make it go away. And in the mainstream it did, but in the hero circles it was never forgotten. Right after graduation, I remember attending a free Fulminate protest outside the Hero Association downtown. Fulminate's old partner and the other heroes from his agency lobbied for 7 years to get the case reopened and the evidence unsealed. It was their legwork that eventually discovered the cause of the explosion had been a gas leak underground and not Fulminate after all. When it finally came out, the mayor tried to bury the story in the mainstream news again, but it was no use. Half the Hero Association Council resigned and the disgraced mayor was voted out in a landslide shortly after. It is true. Fulminate never got a public apology. I'm sure if he wanted to sue the police department or the Hero Association, he could have easily gotten millions of dollars, but from what I heard, he was just happy to be free. And, he didn't want to hurt the integrity of the Hero Association anymore. Last I heard, he got married to his old partner and moved somewhere in Europe to teach at a hero academy out there. I suppose it's a happy ending to a horrible story. Easily one of the worst injustices in the history of professional heroes. But out of this tragedy came a new era of accountability and professionalism. Believe me, it is not perfect, but these days it's not even comparable to what it was back then. Why are you so interested in Fulminate? What's been going on? You can talk to me. I'm not just your practicum sponsor. I would like to think of us as friends. Can I keep a secret? Well, since you're currently not at SarTech, I'm under no obligation to report on your activities, so just this once. Whoa, 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 lower your voice. Where did you hear about the syndicate? You're kidding. The official position of the Hero Association is that the syndicate does not exist. But that's completely false. They've sort of become the underground boogeymen of the hero community, but unlike the boogeyman, they actually exist. I've had run-ins with their kind before. Talk big like they're the puppet masters pulling the strings of this city, when in reality they're little more than a group of mercenaries for hire to the highest bidder. Now, that's not to say they're not dangerous. They're well-funded, well-connected, and worst of all, they have informants everywhere. Pathetic little worms trying to play buddy-buddy with the gangsters in hopes of getting a slice of that pie. I don't know what the syndicate offered you, but frankly, it doesn't matter. You are nothing but a pawn to them, and if they can sell you out to make a quick buck, they will without a second thought. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to imply you had joined them. It's just, I have a history with them. A few years back, I was doing a safety inspection of the eastbound subway line right after the Kagoshima attack. I don't know if you remembered the multiple blasts all along the train line from a former pro-hero who was disgruntled at an employer. As the story goes, Grenadier, a low-tier pro-hero, decided to take out his frustrations over a supposed firing by blowing up the Kagoshima subway line at rush hour to disrupt commerce. Of course, he was stopped only after a couple of his devices were detonated and arrested. The damage to the tunnel and train was superficial, but still SarTech was called in to assist with the evacuations and assess the damage of the track and tunnel. While I was down there, I spotted a group of people moving cases on foot through the tunnel while the train was impounded. When I approached them, they made a run for it, leaving behind a few cases. It was all super serum. I'm sure you'll learn about this when you get closer to graduation, but it's like steroids for your quirk. Highly addictive and extremely dangerous. It's been banned ever since its creation. I immediately reported the find into SarTech and was about to report it to police when, what would you know, I get approached by a well-dressed man in a fancy car. He offers me 10 grand cash to look the other way and give him the crates that were left behind. When I told him I couldn't be bought, he got all up in my face, threatening me and my job. Sure enough, I got called into the CEO's office next day. He tells me some anonymous benefactor donated $100,000 with a note that says if he fires me, they will double that amount. I explained the situation and that I had already stopped by the police station with the crates that morning and made an official statement. Fortunately for me, Mr. Takayama is a man of honor and rejected the bribe. But I know plenty of lesser men who would gladly throw a hero under the bus if it meant getting a quick buck. But that's not the half of it. Grenadier suddenly disappeared from police custody and had not been seen since. The story of his apparent attack was gone from the media the next day, and the whole thing was swept under the rug. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what happened. Grenadier was paid off to stage an attack as cover while the syndicates smuggled highly illegal drugs through the city. Drugs that would go on to kill at least 2 heroes only weeks later. Was that why you were at the police station? No, it was the right thing to do, even though it wouldn't have done anything. A good portion of the police department is on the take, and the rest are too swamped down to track down shadows. Plus, they could paint a target on your back. Wait. I feel someone's headed our way. 2 people, elevated heart rate. It's probably your parents. Just keep your head down for the time being, okay? Focus on your studies and the provisional hero licensing. I still have some connections I trust. I will get in contact when I know more. Hey there. It's nice to meet you. I'm Kinetico with SarTech.